Hey everybody, this is Dr. Carter, and I'm doing this video to help you guys out with understanding and alleviating some anxiety about the 3 writing assignments on your syllabus that are collectively called the counseling project. And that counseling project is made up of your case summary and 2 conceptualization papers. I do this video for 2 reasons. The first is that if you look at your syllabus and the point totals assigned to each of these assignments, together they make up about 45% of your total grade. So you can see that we emphasize these writing assignments, and there's a reason for that that I'm going to get into in just a little bit, but they're important, so it's important that you kind of prepare and do well. The second is related to the first, and that is to help alleviate some anxiety you might have about writing assignments, about using APA style. Learning to write and write well it can be challenging, and I know it was for me when I was going through graduate school. So it's kind of a universal condition, it seems. So information is a great tool to use to combat and alleviate some of that anxiety. So that's hopefully what we'll accomplish today. So let me give you a little bit of kind of an overview. I'm not going to get into the nitty-gritty of the instructions. You can read those for yourself, but I am going to highlight some of the things you need to kind of keep in mind. So just in ways, a way to kind of think about these 3 assignments. The whole purpose of emphasizing writing at this level in your training, because some students really question that. I'm training to be a therapist, not being an author, or I'm not going to be writing research or writing papers for publication. But there is a very important reason for doing these kinds of assignments. And primarily it's to help you organize your own thinking about a client from the standpoint of a theoretical approach. And so in this class, I'm going to have you start with just one theoretical approach. So in each of the conceptualization papers, you're going to be picking just one theoretical approach out of the ones that are listed. So you won't be doing multiple, it's just one. And so the idea is that you have to walk before you can run. And so the idea is that if you can learn to do it with one approach, that later on in your training and even when you get out and start practicing, you can do this kind of exercise using multiple theoretical approaches, which is what in reality most therapists do when they're practicing their craft in the field. So let's emphasize, or let's talk a little bit about organize. The idea is that I don't want you just to tell me about a client. So if we were sitting down across from one another and I would ask you, tell me about your client, and you begin telling me in kind of a memory dump with no particular organization, no particular model or scheme that you're going to use to tell me. You're just going to kind of just throw out information. Contrast that with me asking you that same question of telling me about your client and being able to tell me in an informed way that demonstrates your knowledge of the client and as well as your knowledge of a particular theory. So that's kind of what we're shooting for here. Ultimately, projects like this answer this question: what approach am I going to use with this client, with these problems at this particular time? And that's what this exercise and these series of exercises and assignments attempts to answer, and to help you begin to think about not just techniques, not just what interventions you want to use, but the reasons why, and what presenting problems, or the type of client, or the timing of them coming in to see you at this particular point in their life. What kinds of specific issues are they going through? What's your expertise with a particular theoretical approach? What does the research say about using particular approaches and particular theoretical interventions with a particular presenting problem? Those are all things that you'll need to think about in practice, and we're going to start doing that with this assignment. So let's talk a little bit about the case summary. The case summary is your first of 3 assignments, and it allows you to pick a fictional client. Usually students choose clients or choose their fictional clients from movies, from literature, but the emphasis is on fictional. And the idea is that we want to get around any kind of HIPAA or confidentiality issues. Now, again, these instructions are listed for you. I don't want to go over each one, but highlight the things that are going to be important for you to keep in mind. So once you've picked your fictional client, you'll be given a series of instructions to follow in terms of the kinds of presenting problems they can have. We're going to eliminate some of those. So we don't want you to use certain kinds of diagnoses or certain kinds of problems. We're not going to have you do a case summary on a suicidal client or a schizophrenic or psychotic client or with childhood sexual abuse. So there are certain things that we just want to eliminate. We want to keep it simple and keep it straightforward. The idea being that you can choose something that will work nicely and integrate nicely with the assignment that you've got in front of you. And then there are a list of headings that we want you to use for this assignment, including a title page, an introduction, the presenting problems, treatment goals, and references. Now, we're going to get into this towards the end of this video, but I'm going to kind of wet your taste buds here by saying that when I give you the headings to use, please use them. They're there not for suggestion or not for ways to help you understand the instructions, but they're there actually for you to transfer onto your paper. So those headings play a role in the way you organize your paper. And then with the 2 conceptualizations, they follow roughly the same pattern in that you are going to take your fictional client, pick a theoretical approach, and discuss that client with that theoretical approach. And there are some case conceptualization types of questions I'm going to ask you to respond to that are important to help you understand more about the theory and why it might be relevant for this particular type of client. I'm going to ask you to choose interventions and techniques from that particular theoretical approach. And then I'm going to ask you to do a spiritual application where you're going to include this, whether or not the client might want Christian counseling or not. The idea is that I want you to speak to what ways this particular approach is compatible and then not compatible with Christian concepts and Christian beliefs. So you're going to list 3 areas of compatibility and 3 areas of incompatibility. So that's an important aspect of this paper. It's the opportunity to do the Christian integration for this particular assignment. And then you're going to write me a conclusion and then references. Now, the second conceptualization paper follows a very similar pattern. The main difference being that in your spiritual application area, and you can go back and read this, there is a bit more that we're going to ask you to do with that, combining both theoretical approaches and talk about things like spiritual challenges, what resources and referrals you might use, and then also areas of compatibility and incompatibility. And then, of course, conclusion and references. So that gives you just kind of an overview. The specifics, the numbers of pages are all included in your description of instruction. So let me give you some helpful hints in how you approach each of these assignments. And please take these to heart because these are really important in terms of getting you steered in the right direction. So the first that I would give you is to follow the instructions. And that seems a bit simple, right? But it's important that you do that. The conceptualization instructions in particular are pretty involved. They're several pages, and it's really important that you take each of the headings that are on that instruction page and address each of the questions and elements for that section before you move on to the next one. So read the instructions. The second thing that I would suggest that you do is before you sit down and start writing your papers is that you do a rough outline of what you want to say, what's going to go in each section, and actually write it out or type it out and do your introduction, what's going to go there, what's going to go in your abstract, what's going to go in your case conceptualization, how about your spiritual applications, what's going to go there, and write it out, just the shell or the outline of it, and then fill it in as you're typing in terms of the detail. It's really important to kind of keep yourself organized so that you understand how each section relates and that you not miss anything that heading requires. The third thing is, as I mentioned, alluded to just a bit ago, make sure you follow the headings that are included in these instructions. So if it says title page, make sure you have a title page. When it says abstract, make sure you have a page that's labeled abstract. When you come to the section on case conceptualization using the particular theory you're using, then put it that way. Put case conceptualization using, and then like object relations theory or person-centered theory. Make sure you include that just as it's written. And then interventions, make sure that's titled, and so on. And you're going to do that for each of the 3 assignments. The next thing I would say as far as a helpful hint is don't be shy about diving in and learning APA style. I'm pretty specific about the feedback that I give you guys about areas that need to be included. Things like centering your headings, using when to use boldface, indentions or lack of indentions depending upon where you're at in the paper, using double space, how to do citations and references correctly. I've already given you some helps to assist you with this. I just sent you a couple of days ago some resources from Liberty, and at the bottom of that posting that I did for you guys, there is a link to Purdue OWL, and OWL stands for Online Writing Lab. This is an excellent resource to use that will give you some helpful resources to be able to do citations, to be able to do references, how to organize your paper in an APA format. Other resources that you can use include Liberty's Online Writing Lab. That's a very helpful resource. They can actually work with you on the phone and look at your drafts, help to kind of organize your paper in a way that's going to be helpful and give you hints on APA style. And then, of course, you should also have the APA publication manual. You'll see it on the first shelf right behind me, that blue book that's pointing outwards right there. That's the APA publication manual. Hopefully you have one of those. You'll need it. And if you have a question, you can go to the index in the back and actually look up the things that you're looking for when you need some help with finding out how to cite something or what gets double-spaced, that kind of thing. The last thing I would tell you is if you run into problems or you get stuck, reach out to me. Let me know, and you can send me a draft of what you've got, and I can try to help you work through some of the obstacles that you've got. Um, so as I think about it, I think that's probably all I want to include in this video. It's kind of a primer to get you started. Don't be intimidated by it. The best way is to just jump right in and be thinking about all of the things that I've mentioned to you, and with the instructions, I think you'll be fine. Again, if you have questions, send me an email, and I'll be happy to work with you on whatever you've got. Thank you guys, and good luck.